Hola. Thank you very much for waking up so early on the last day of IT Forum. I'm going to talk about Office business applications, and since this is IT Forum, we're going to spend the time to have a look at how you guys, IT pros, can deploy, administer all of these exciting new type of applications. And my name is Patrick Tissegem. I work for a company called UTU, based in Brussels, the land or the country without government, but it still exists. I was here last week for 6 sessions for the developers, and I just flew in last night for talking here to you about Office business applications. The reason why I talk to you about Office business applications is because I pretty much complained to Microsoft. I have created a lot of training material during the last year for Microsoft Corp around this whole topic of Office business applications. And I told them that during the many sessions that we gave, business people are very excited about Office business applications. Developers are getting excited. Now it's time to make the IT people excited. Yeah. And I actually told this on my blog, did a posting, and the day after I was invited to come and speak to you here. Yeah. Okay, which is kind of the story behind this session. Now, as a background, I'm a developer, but we're not going to do any coding here, and we're not going to learn how to create Office business applications. We're going to see what the developers have created, and then see what you can do to kind of make these things, these solution components, available. Now, I've been browsing through the agendas, through the different sessions, and there was no session on OBA this week. So I think it's first my task to explain a little bit what OBAs are all about. Yeah, okay, because that's quite important. And then I'm going to talk about a typical architecture of an Office business application. I really like the whole concept of OBAs, and I'll show you why. And then within the architecture, if you look at a typical Office business application, it typically is going to consist out of 3 layers, or actually 4 layers. And we have some extensions that will be deployed to the clients, that will extend the Office clients like Outlook, Word, Excel, possibly PowerPoint. And so that's the first layer. The other layer on the other side of the OBA universum are the databases and the line of business systems that store our critical enterprise data, like Microsoft CRM, SAP, and so on. And the whole goal is really to kind of unlock that data for the information workers, kind of get that data inside their Office environment and let them play with that data, let them act on that data. Now, those are 2 layers. We also have layers in the middle. And we have SharePoint, Windows SharePoint services. It's kind of the infrastructure that a typical OBA application is using to let people store what they are creating and let people collaborate and manage, for example, the documents, the sales proposals, the RFPs, whatever that they are creating, they can store it there and they can manage and collaborate on it. So Windows SharePoint services, possibly extended with the Microsoft Office SharePoint server, is kind of your website infrastructure for Office business applications. And then you have the 4th layer, which is the layer that we are going to use to connect to our line of business systems. Yeah, so in the past, we created applications that connected directly to our line of business systems. And we had point-to-point applications, as we call them. Now, this is not popular anymore in a service-oriented architecture. So we like the idea of having middle layers, kind of a layer that abstracts from this side the way we go to our line of business systems. And If you are familiar with the Microsoft Office SharePoint server, you might have played around with the business data catalog, which is kind of playing the role of that middle layer. And I'll show you how you as an administrator can configure and can prepare the business data layer for, or the business data catalog for exposing that data in a way that the customers, the client applications can consume them. So we're going to go through each of these layers and we'll focus on how you deploy and administer each of these layers. So I talked about OBA. OBA, who is familiar with OBA? Okay, a couple of guys. Who has never heard about OBA? All right, so most of you have heard about Office Business Applications. There's a good site you can go to. It's called www.obacentral.com. If you go to obacentral.com, it's not a site for developers. It's not a site for IT people. It's more kind of a site for the business people where they can learn what kind of OBA applications are already available and what kind of things are possible with this new breed of applications. Because that is what we like to refer to as an OBA application. It's a new way of thinking about applications. It is not a new technology that Microsoft has introduced. It simply leverages the Office system, and if you know about the Office system, it's a very big family of products and technologies that are both there on the clients as well as on the servers. So the whole idea of OBAs is to really use the Office system as a platform. For the developers, and we spread the message, hey, this is a development platform. You can start building applications that run on top of SharePoint, that run on top of the Office clients, or integrate with these platforms. And that's a very exciting kind of new concept. Well, it's basically, we did it in the past, but now the whole goal of OBAs is to really structure that message and give both developers, IT people, and business people kind of more guidance and more resources, more training on how to finally accomplish all of this. But it's all about increasing the information worker productivity. So we have information workers that, as you see, maybe you have seen this slide already, but this is a slide about the results gap. Okay, there's a big gap between the world of the information workers and the world of the structured data. The information workers, they work in the unstructured world, in the jungle. They create information, they respond to customer complaints, they have to create proposals, and they do it all in a very unstructured way, in a very ad hoc manner. They create Word documents, they have to store these Word documents somewhere. So that's one world. The second world is the world of the structured data, where a lot of organizations have already in place all of the necessary infrastructure to store this enterprise critical data. Because most of the time, it's all about order information, product information, consumer information, and we don't like to store these things in Access or in SharePoint, and we use line of business systems like Microsoft CRM and SAP or an AS400 to store that information. Now, in the past, the information workers had a very tough task to get to that data. So in the past, they actually had to either go to training or they had to kind of use external applications outside of what I call their comfort zone. And what is the comfort zone of the information worker? Outlook. Okay, your salespeople, they work in Outlook. They don't want to go outside of Outlook to find out, hey, what is the price of a certain product? They don't want to do Alt-Tab. Okay, they do too much Alt-Tab, they will get kind of some problems with their wrists, and they're going to complain. You have to give them some holidays. So what they want is they want to kind of access all of that data in a very easy, friendly way from within their environment. So OBAS try to bridge that result gap. And we have a number of applications or examples already in place. And we have Duet. Duet is the joint project between Microsoft and SAP, where SAP recognizes that they can do a better job integrating their data into the Office environment. And Microsoft recognizing that SAP is a very good place where we store our enterprise critical data. So they decided to marry, and they decided to set up a joint project. And that is coming to a conclusion. It's already there and you can play with it, but there's a lot more that will come. And then we have the Dynamics, Microsoft CRM, all of the other products that are part of the Dynamics. What you will see if you go for the latest versions is that there are a lot of snap-ins, there are a lot of integration points in the Office 2007 clients. And well, these are nice examples. And what I've tried to learn ISVs in the last couple of years is how to build these OBAS themselves. So independent solution vendors are a typical target audience for building OBAS. And more, also within companies, the corporate developers are getting pushed by the business to kind of build small little OBAS for increasing the productivity of the business people or of the team that the business people are part of. So it's all about unlocking that business data, getting to that data, but also playing with that data, acting on that data. And as said, it's kind of a new breed of solutions. So I'm going to give you a couple of slides with samples, and then I'm going to show you a live sample in a moment. So this is maybe if you are familiar with Microsoft CRM, this is how CRM integrates itself into Outlook. So your salespeople, your business people are able to create opportunities and to kind of manage and maintain their contact information that is part of CRM within the Outlook environment. So that's kind of the integration we have at this level. Another example, this is a screenshot of Duet, where the whole goal is using some of the client extensibility options to have people, when they work in Word, in Excel, in Outlook, to have custom ribbons, this ribbon experience in Office 2007, and also custom task panes that bring in, that expose that data that is available there in SAP. Now, if you go to OBAS Central, you will be able to learn about some real cases. So for example, Epicor is a good case where they have integrated, again, using a lot of add-ins for Outlook, they have integrated their CRM system inside the Outlook environment. We have Pfizer, which is a case that more targets the document generation. I will show you later on an example of how you can deliver an OBA application where people can get documents on the fly, populated with business data. So this is an example. And then this one here I like very much, which is the Elite case study. So this, unfortunately, I don't have live access to this application, but Elite is kind of using integration within Outlook that exposes all of the data about their models, which is nice. So they can go to, from within their Outlook, they can see the pictures of these nice ladies, and they can see how tall they are, what they're good in, and then can schedule them within their Outlook calendar. So unfortunately, I cannot show this live. But what I will do is, I will show you another example. Okay, so at UTU, we try always to kind of automate, eat our own dog food, as we call it, automate our own administration. And one of the things that people are doing at UTU is respond to a lot of emails about, hey, what kind of course do you give? Hey, we need a trainer, and so on and so on. So instead of typing all of that information every time for each new email, what we have developed is a small add-in that allows people in the administration to use snippets and to kind of have very quickly a mail populated with reusable snippets. And we use SharePoint to kind of store and maintain those snippets. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to go for a new email. And then what we have is we have a ribbon that is in place. When people click on that ribbon, there's a task pane that is available. All of the information that comes out of that task pane is actually sitting in SharePoint. So OBAs kind of cover client-side solutions as well as server-side solutions. That's why it's a little bit tricky to deploy these types of applications. I'll talk about that. But over here, what I can do is I can, for example, allow me to apologize. We don't have a trainer available. So we can quickly kind of insert snippets. And then when we create hello from Barcelona, so when we create, and let's make this a little bit bigger or bold, whatever. So what I can do is I can kind of select this and I can save this as a snippet. So as an information worker, I'm able to connect to my SharePoint environment. Should be able to connect to my SharePoint environment. There it is. And kind of decide in what folder I'm going to. And let's go for announcements. Actually, it didn't pick it up. All right, so let's do this. Okay, but anyway, so I can do hello from Barca, yeah, and select announcement and pretty much save this as part of the snippets. So let's see if it actually saved it. Over here, it didn't save it. That was some problem here. But let's have a look at the snippets list. And so here's the snippets list. And in here, we actually, in the SharePoint environment, we store all of these little pieces. All right. So little things like that are popping up inside organizations. I do a lot of visiting of large organizations, and I see more and more these types of little applications popping up on the desktops of the clients. Now, if you are going to deploy an Office business application, most of the time it's really kind of a collection of different solution components. And so what we have client-side components, we have components that will be deployed on the server, components that make use of the layer of Windows SharePoint services, components that make use of the layer of the Microsoft Office SharePoint server. And then we have components that will act as kind of the connection layer to your business data, and to your line of business systems, or to your traditional data stores. And so really OBAs are looking at the Office system as the platform where you can deliver these solutions from. Okay, so regarding the solution components, the different types of solution components, we have Office Client Extensibility. Yeah. Office Client Extensibility is offered or can be offered in two ways. I'll show you these two ways in a moment. We have solutions that are what we call document level solutions. For example, I have a Word template for creating proposals. My extensions that I need as a sales guy are only going to be available when I create documents based on that template. And so my ribbon, my customization code is going to be there only for this specific type of documents. Okay, developers are using their Visual Studio.net to create these types of applications. Yeah, and within Visual Studio, they have an extension called Visual Studio Tools for Office. Yeah. Visual Studio Tools for Office is giving them a professional environment for building these types of solutions. You know, developers, when you, as a project manager, you tell them, dude, you're going to create an Office application. Yeah. The business needs an Office application. In the past, the developer, the hardcore .NET developer, often complains, say, I'm a hardcore C# developer. I don't do Office applications. It's all about Visual Basic for applications and all these other things. I don't want to mess with all of that. Well, times have changed, and so they have no arguments anymore, because within their development environment, they have the professional support for building these types of applications. Now, for IT people, it's important to understand Visto. Why? Well, if you deploy what the developers have built with VSTO, you will have to make sure that the VSTO runtime is on the client machines. So that's one of the requirements, and I have a slide on the different requirements for the clients in a moment. Then we have the second type of applications, which are the application or solutions, application level solutions. So these are pretty much add-ins that you're going to create that will be deployed to the client and that will appear everywhere. And you can basically select, it's only going to be for Word, it's only going to be for Outlook, but every time that they open that environment, they will get your extension. And again, the developers are creating Vistos. Then you have your connections to your business data. As mentioned, you have two options here. I really advise you, if you've never done this, to have a look at the business data catalog as your middle layer to connect to your line of business data. So the BDC is there. You as administrators, you're going to get actually the models of the business data that developers have created, and you have to import that into the business data catalog, and then you can configure and kind of set the security on the access to all of that business data, as I will show you. So that's the second layer. Think of the BDC as the ODBC. 15 years ago, we didn't have, well, maybe 20 years, I don't know yet. But we had a time that there was no ODBC, and every time we connected to the database, we had to kind of learn how to connect to it. Then came ODBC, and we had to find the good ODBC driver. But once we had the good ODBC driver, we just installed it, and then the clients could connect to any type of data source in a very consistent, unified way. That's what the BDC is all about. It's very important technology. Then we have the SharePoint website and storage infrastructure. You as IT people, you really have to know about features and solutions in the SharePoint world. Who knows about features and solutions? Okay, so in the second part, I'm going to talk about this, but it's really important as a SharePoint administrator. It's not only your task to create sites and configure how the backup is going to be and how the topology is going to be. It's more than that. A SharePoint administrator also must have some feeling about what developers are doing. Because developers are going to create stuff, and that stuff is going to be packaged in features and possibly also in solutions. Your role is to make sure that all of that is deployed within your server farm. That's an easy task, as I will show you. A harder task is, how do you maintain all of this? Developer creates something, 2 weeks later, a new version comes out. Okay, how do you deploy that new version within your server farm? You have to be very careful as an administrator doing that, as I will show you. So let's cover the clients first. Deployment of an OVA client solution. So first of all, you have to decide on the deployment model. This is very important for the document level type of solutions. Okay, why? Well, if you have a document level type of solution, you basically have two parts of the solution. You have the document or the template, and then you have the DLL that will be loaded when the document is opened or when a document is created based on the template. You can decide where each of these two pieces will be located. And I'll show you an example later on. Another question that you have to ask is, does everybody has the prerequisites? Okay, so do know that if you go for Office client extensions, there are some things that you need to install on the desktops. Okay, most of the Office client extensions will be created with .NET, will be created with VSTO, within your .NET environment, your developers will talk to Word, but they cannot talk directly to Word. They talk to what we call the PIAs, and the primary interop assemblies, and that call is going to be translated in the COM-based world of Office. In Office, COM is still the king. Yeah? Okay, it will take a while before everything in Word, Outlook will be rewritten in .NET. Probably not next version, definitely not maybe later on, but it's a very tough job for Microsoft doing that. So your developers are talking to another layer. That layer also needs to be there on your desktops. And then depending on what they are going to use, other types of layers will need to be there. I have a slide on that. Now, installing these layers, these prerequisites, is most of the time, basically every time, an administrator task. Yeah, because you have to be an administrator on your machine to be able to install these prerequisites. Developers prepare the solution. Yeah. You're the boss. IT people are the boss. You have to force your developers to give you the solution in a packaged way. Yeah. Okay, they have all of the means of doing that. Yeah. Okay, so I'll show you later on what they have to do for this. Then we have to, as administrators, kind of copy that to the locations where the solutions can be downloaded. And for some of the solutions, we need to have some registry entries. Okay, again, a very tough job on the clients where for this to happen, you need to have administrator rights most of the time. And then also very important in the Office world, if we load external DLLs in Word, Outlook, or whatever, Office does not trust anything anymore. It is a very popular product, and a lot of people are trying to do harmful things to Excel, to Outlook, and so on. So in the Office world, we don't trust anything anymore. So if you want to load your DLL, you need to give full trust to that assembly, to that DLL that is loaded into the environment. For you administrators, it means that you have to configure the .NET security on the desktop. Okay. Now again, developers should do the work for you, okay, but could be that you have to fine-tune it. All right, so you have a slide where I discuss the deployment models for document. So basically, you have a doc, you have a DLL, okay, you have the choice. You put it all on the clients. It has a couple of advantages, as you see here. People don't have to wait very long before they get their solution up and running. They have their personal copy, and they can also work in an offline scenario. Yeah. But in the real world, if we are in kind of an agile company where the DLL, the customization, changes very often, you need to distribute that change all the time. This is, for me, the perfect model. That's the model that I'm going to show you. Yeah. So what we have is we have the documents sitting on the clients, and then the DLLs are deployed on what we call a deployment server. So this can be a website or a normal file share. And every time we open up the document, okay, what the Office environment can do for the client is basically go to the deployment server and verify if there is a new version available. I'll show you how this is done. And then if needed, it can just download that new version and kind of customize the way or deliver that new customization to the user. Yeah. And then this is the network where you say, okay, the document itself, maybe you have a special template for proposals or for requests, okay, and that needs to change also very often. Then we can have the document itself sitting on the deployment or the network server. Some offline considerations. So local install, of course, gives you all of the offline experience. Older type of client-side extensions very often use the Internet Explorer cache for the DLLs. And so they download the DLL, the customization, it's being cached by Internet Explorer. This can be a good thing, but also a bad thing, because the cache of Internet Explorer is something that is very kind of fragile, and sometimes people or you are clearing that cache and they lose their offline experience. IntelliMirror is another approach, but for me, as I will show you, the new version of Visual Studio and the new VSTO approach gives you a new way of deploying these types of solutions. It's done using click once. Now, click once was there in the previous in the current version, but it has been improved a lot. So there's a new cache that I'm going to show you, the click once cache, that is different, separate from the Internet Explorer cache. Okay. So client machine requirements, these are the requirements. VSTO, okay, so if you don't use VSTO or CAS, which you probably are not going to do in the real world because it's still in beta, but if you use VSTO 2005 second edition, do know that for each of the VSTO version that you are going to use, you need to have that runtime available on the clients. And possibly, if you work in a multilingual environment, you will have to download and then also install on the clients the VSTO language packs, English, Dutch, whatever. And again, users require administrative rights to install these prerequisites. So either you go to the machine yourself or use your familiar technologies for pushing all of this to the clients. Talked about security. So applications must be trusted. Okay, so if you don't get full trust, even if you load the DLL from the local machine, if you're a little bit familiar with the security of .NET, if we put the DLL on the local machine, normally, if we load it in a Windows application, that gets the trust that it needs. That is not true for Office clients. Okay, so every time you need to give that full trust to your DLLs. VSTO uses that approach, and what the clients are doing is basically using the whole evidence mechanism that is part of code access security within .NET. So basically, a good advice, a good practice is that your developers, with your help, for example, are going to make use of certificates so that you can give that full trust based on the certificate that is going to be installed on the clients. Deployment tools, there are basically two ways your developers can prepare the solution for you. They can go and use a publish wizard. I'll show you that. So that's very useful for network scenarios. And then secondly, we have MSIs. MSIs are very useful for deploying add-ins, where you need to have the DLL downloaded or, let's say, installed on the client. Okay, so let's switch here. Okay, so don't worry, I'm not going to show you code, but this is a Visual Studio VSTO product. And maybe you have seen this already, but your developers have the full integration of Word within their designer, so they can drag and drop, they can write code like a Windows application. Now, when it's time for deploying, what they're going to use is they're going to use the publish wizard. Now, I have opened my project properties here to give you an overview of what the different settings are that they can kind of configure. And I think it's important for administrators to understand this also, because they will have to maintain all of this. So first of all, we have a publishing folder. This is basically, okay, I'm going to just save my work in that publishing folder. And then I'm going to have an installation folder. So remember, this is a solution that has two components, document, DLL. Document will be on the client, DLL will be on a network share. So I need to tell here where that network share is, or this can also be an FTP, or this can be an HTTP. It can even be a CD, a memory stick, where you're going to make these things available. And then you define what the prerequisites are. So during the publishing, okay, there will be XML files created. These XML files are going to define what the prerequisites are, and if the prerequisites are not met on the client, they can be downloaded from the internet or from a location that you have specified. And then very important in the real world is the updates. Okay, so you can configure that whenever the client opens up the document, that it's going to check whether there's a new version of the customization DLL, yeah, or you can configure intervals or say never. Yeah. Okay, so let's publish. All right. So it's publishing, still publishing. So over here, it's going to make available all of our solution components. Actually, over here. See if it's finished. It's ready. So what it did is, so what the developer does for you is kind of prepare a place where you will find all of the different components that make up this document level solution. So what do we have? We have the document. We have a setup.exe for the prerequisites. Yeah. And then we have XML files. These are called manifest files. Okay. I'm going to come to that in a moment. But now it's your job as an administrator to kind of move this to the place where people will be able to download the DLL. So I've prepared here this network share. And I'm going to just drop everything over here. All right, and let's assume that you have the document available on the client. So the client, and then you have the network share where the DLL is located. The DLL is not yet available in or on the client. So when I open this up, you will see that it immediately goes and it finds out that there is a DLL that it needs to get somewhere. Yeah. Okay, I'll show you how this place is defined. But depending on how you configured your certificate, and so you can kind of define that we're going to sign RDL with a certain certificate, the user is going to see the customization installer, and then we can install this. Yeah. And then we have our extension that has been loaded and is available here so that I can kind of go and fill up this document with information that is coming from my line of business systems. All right, well, now first of all, let me show you over here in properties that the document itself has a custom property. This is important. Remember, during the publishing, I pretty much specified, hey, this is going to be the place where the DLL needs to be downloaded. Well, this is made available within the document itself using a custom property. And the custom property actually points to a VSTO file. The VSTO file is a small XML file that contains information about, so that's what you will find over here. So that contains information about, don't worry, I'm not going to explain all of this, but information about where the DLL or what type of DLL, and also some information about the publisher. All right. Now, let's assume that users are complaining. The business is complaining, and developers get a request for making a small change. So I'm going just to make that change over here. If my environment comes back. This is beta software. So sometimes we need to wait a little bit. All right, not like that too much. Okay, no worries. All right. I need to get my properties back. Where are my properties? So the property window is there, but not my properties. Okay. Anyway. Oh, here. So, okay, don't worry. So what the users want is they want to have a more flashy user interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to set this to yellow. Okay, so this is my update. That's what the business requested. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and select my Solution Explorer again. Okay, and I'm going back to the properties. So I have an update of my customization DLL. So I'm going to change the version, and I'm going to publish again. So I have a new version of the DLL now. And I'm just going to show you how, on the client, whenever we open up the document, you will see that the document is going to know about this new version and automatically download the DLL to the client. So let's go here. So as an administrator, what you do is you have a second version. So you need to deploy the individual files for this second version. All right. So basically, the VSTO here, that's the one that has the information that there is a second version. So when we open now the document, you will see that, okay, without the breeze, okay, the DLL, the new DLL is downloaded. And if we go, then we have the flashy yellow interface. Okay. So this is the click once approach in this new VSTO ORCAS. Let me just show you for the administrators a little bit what is there behind the scenes. So the click once technology uses not the Internet Explorer cache, but use a new cache over here where you will find information about the DLLs and the manifests. Yeah, so this is where we cache our DLLs. Yeah. If you want, you can clean up. There's a small tool that comes with the Vista SDK and also with the .NET SDK called mage.exe. And with CC, you can clear up the click once cache. And so that's it. All right. Now, what if it's not a document level based solution? What if it's an add-in? Well, let me just show you over here what your developers have to do. Your developers, they build all of these DLLs that make up the add-in. They have to pretty much kind of come up with an MSI. You really have to force them to come up with an MSI. And they can do that in their Visual Studio.NET. Thing that they have to include is security. It's very important. Remember, on the client, you need to have full trust for those DLLs. So what they can do for you is pretty much embed this security permission request as a custom action. Yeah. Okay, so they have the documentation to do that, and they can download samples that are going to enforce, that are going to configure the code access security on the client. And when we build this, we have an MSI. I can show you that if you double click on it, you go through the wizard, but it's not very exciting. Okay, so let me just continue now. So ORCAS leverages the click once. You will also see that for ORCAS, a lot of the prerequisites are going to be installed. Yeah? And you have also the registry entries are going to be entered by the ORCAS installation. Okay. Just a quick word about the business data catalog. Who has been to Mike Fitzmaurice, his session about BDC? Okay, so you've seen this picture probably. Yeah. Okay, so the middle layer, important for administrators, are some tasks. So the developers are going to give you application definition files, basically XML files containing the model of the business data. Yeah. Okay, you're going to import that, and then you are going to configure the security for all of this. So possibly you're also going to create custom actions. Yeah? So the BDC is all about getting data. It's not about updating data. Updating is done by creating custom actions for the entities that you expose via the BDC. Yeah? And if you need to configure search, some of you probably are responsible for creating content sources and creating search scopes. And do know that whatever is actually there as business data can be crawled by the index engine. All right, so let's have a quick look right here. Okay, so let me go here. All right, so this is what developers are creating for you. Yeah, okay, don't worry. They're going to be busy with that for a couple of hours. Yeah, if they want to torture themselves, they do this in Visual Studio. Yeah, but do know that there are also tools for designing these types of application files. So I can, for example, connect to my SQL server and go and connect to my database or web servers or Oracle, and then pretty much kind of drag and drop, edit my entities, edit the methods, edit the actions, and pretty much create the application file like this. And then just save it and give it to you. Now what you have to do is you have to go to the administration site of the shared service provider. And so the shared service provider is the super being within your server farm. Yeah? It's a new thing in MOS, and it allows for the distribution, the sharing of services to anything that is associated or connected to this shared service provider. And one of the services that are shared are, of course, the BDC services. So what you as administrators are going to do is import that application. I've done it already, but it's pretty simple to do, and it takes not a lot of your time. But once you've done it, there is also an important task to kind of configure the permissions. Okay, because this is business data. Okay, if you crawl that data, if you let people work with the business data web parts that are part of MOS, okay, they will see everything. Yeah, if you don't configure the security well. Yeah, but what you can do is you can say, hey, the marketing managers, they have the permission to kind of see this type of data, these entities, orders, but other people are not allowed to see. For example, the human resource managers, they are not able to see or allowed to go and execute that business data. So you do this at various levels here within the BDC. Now, once the BDC is configured, a lot of business data is unlocked. So let me show just a solution. So what I have here is I have a web part, and I have a page that is going to be made available within SharePoint that allows people to connect to that data. Your developers are going to create this web part. Your developers are going to create the pages. How are they going to give you all of this? Well, this is a good approach. They're going to give you a WSP file. Okay, the WSP is what we call a SharePoint solution file. It's basically a cabinet file. Yeah? Okay, so we have a cabinet file. So where in the cabinet file, you will find all of the different pieces that make up my solution here. So they give you that. Now, as I will show you later on, this is more than enough for you because you have your super tool, STS ADM, to make this solution available. But if the developers are a little bit nicer, what they can do is they can also kind of give you an installer for all of this. So I'm going to use this installer. It's basically a small application that is downloadable from Codeplex. It's called the SharePoint installer. I use it very, very often. It's very easy, and you don't have to configure a lot, but you just give it the WSP. Here is a small XML file where you can configure your banner, the EULA, and a couple of other things. But we just go through the setup, next, and then it's first going to check whether you have the permission to do this and whether everything is in place. Then we can read the license agreement. Then we can specify where we're going to go for, right here. And then, as I will explain a little bit more in detail, we are actually adding the solution now to the configuration database, where we have a table called the solution store. And then we're going to deploy the solution to, in my case, this IIS web application listening to port 5010. All right, so that has been done. And if we now go over here to our site, now it changed the web.config. So if you're a SharePoint administrator, then you probably are aware that IIS reset recycling of application pools to make available new types of applications. Solutions for SharePoint is something that happens very frequently. But I have made available some new features. Okay? So features are things that people can use within SharePoint. Okay? And developers can create these things like web parts and pages. So I'm just going to activate this feature. And then I can go to my page. I can edit the page. I can add the web part. So this is also OBA. Now, OBA is not only about client extensions, it's also about working in SharePoint and delivering solutions in SharePoint that connect to your business data. So we have here the BDC product browser. All right, so it is just connecting. So this is the AdventureWorks data, but it can be line of business data that comes from SAP. I don't mind, I don't care as a user where this data is coming from. So I'm going to just select road bikes. So this is a small web part. And then I can go and view the details and possibly also open up a Word document that, let me save this quickly on my desktop to show you something later on, that is populated with this data. And possibly it has been extended with a task pane so that you can kind of go and connect to your line of business data again, but then from within your Word environment, and possibly kind of update all of this. So all of this cycle of kind of working with that business data from within your comfort zone is very, very important. Now, let's have a look here. How do I get that business data in the document? Well, as administrators, you are probably aware of the new file format. The new file format is super important in the whole world of OBAS. So what I have is, so this is basically a zip file, your docx. And in that zip file, we can drop anything we want. So I have in the zip a small XML file that I dropped in it behind that button. And then in the document itself, let's go back to the document. That information is actually exposed or displayed by new things we have in Word. They are called content controls. So content controls are new placeholders, kind of the follow-up of bookmarks or fields, much more powerful. You can bind them to XML data that is inside your docx. All right. So that is kind of an example of some of the integration you have with the BDC. Now, final section. We've touched already a number of things of it. So a lot of the components of OBAS will work in SharePoint, will be available in SharePoint. Okay, so the white circles here are not your responsibility, and those are the things that developers are going to create. But really, if you have some power within your company, hopefully you have, and you have developers who are creating solutions for SharePoint, force them to deliver their solution components in features. Don't let them go to the browser and create content types and use SharePoint Designer to create all kinds of stuff. You have zero reusability story for SharePoint. Well, 0.5. Okay? So let them, I always tell the developers, sit back, relax, learn your camel. Yeah? So CAML is the collaborative application markup language that we use for creating features. Yeah? So they have to wrap their solution components in features, and they can glue these features together, 50 features. Yeah? And while you as an administrator, you don't want to click 50 times on each feature, yeah, or on the different features to make these solution components available. No, what developers have to do is they have to kind of, the third circle there, they have to glue it all together. Yeah? Dependencies between features, stapling of features, so that you have one feature that you see in your administration page that you click on, and because there's dependencies defined, we have the 50 other features that are going to be activated. This is the approach that you really have to enforce. And then that is good features, but then you need to deploy all of that in your server farm, and you don't want to do X copies all the time. So what you want to do is you want to, with one single deployment, you want to make all of this available. And that's where the solutions come in. So your developers have to package all of this in a WSP. And then the yellow circles pop up, and those are your responsibility. So you have to deploy these packages. You have to upgrade and maintain the solutions within the server farm. Okay, so I'm going to skip this slide a little bit. I need to go, but these are the different types of solutions we can build for SharePoint that you will have to deploy. So let me just quickly go here. And then features. So let me go features, solutions, upgrading, and so on, and then we'll finish. So features, if you've never seen features, let me show you one. All right, and it's not, you know, in the SharePoint world, there's a thin line between the administrator and the developer. Yeah? An administrator has to know a little bit about the development. Okay, not how to code, but all about this CAML. Yeah? So SharePoint developers have to know about administration, and SharePoint administrators have to know about CAML. Yeah? It's important. So the features are actually comprised of small XML files. And I'm not going to explain all of this, but you have a feature that has an ID, has a scope, and this is where we can activate the feature as an administrator. Yeah. And then it points to the feature itself. All right, so in this case, it's just creating a new menu in the SharePoint environment. That's all it does. So you as an administrator, what you will have to do is, and I'm going to do it quite manually here, but you go to the Common Files, Microsoft Shared, Web Server Extensions, 12, Template. Yeah, this is the Windows SharePoint Services directory. And here you have features. So all of these building blocks that can be used within the SharePoint environment. So you need to make available your feature in here. So most of the time, if we do it in a very manual approach, we do just an Xcopy. So we just do an Xcopy here. So let's do that. Okay. So now the feature is available. Okay, what do you have to do as an administrator to kind of just make sure that people can use the feature? Is you have to use your super tool, STS ADM, with the option install feature. And then you give the name of the feature. This is the name of the folder that you have deployed, Litware feature. So install feature is there. Once the feature is installed, you can also use STS ADM to activate the feature. Yeah, but once it is installed, we can go to our administration page. In this case, it was scoped at the level of the web, so the individual site. And then I have the simple feature that pops up over here. And I can activate it. And by activating this, we have a new menu item here with some custom functionality. Okay, so this is a very simple example, but illustrates somehow the features. Of course, more complicated than all of this, because with features, you can make available anything. Yeah? Workflows, web parts, list templates, pages, and so on. All right. Now, as said, we're going to package these features, WSP files, cabinet files. Okay, so we dump all of our DLLs in there, all of our camel files, and then plus one extra file, which is called your manifest.xml. The manifest.xml is basically your installation script. Okay, in there, we are going to define, okay, this DLL goes in the global assembly cache. This DLL goes in the bin. Here we need to do that. So that's what you're going to tell SharePoint. So this is pretty much the model that I advocate in the companies. This is what the blue things, what the developers are doing, plus the green one. And sometimes administrators are taking over the role there and are going to create the WSPs, including the manifest file, because they want to have control. And then you can go a step further and kind of package this all up in an MSI if you need to have a very kind of friendly installation of your solution. Okay, so deploying the solution is something you guys will do. 2 steps. Okay, you add the solution to the solution store via STS ADM, as I will show you. And then you have one place in your SharePoint Central administration called the solution management page, from where you can push the solution to the different front-end web servers or application servers that are part of your server farm. Okay, and STS ADM is using add solution, and then deploy solution is also something you can activate or execute with STS ADM. Yeah. All right. Let's come back here. Okay. So I'm going to show you 2 demos here. One is a safe demo. A second one is something that the developers don't want me to say to administrators. I'm going to explain why, because it's kind of something that they will lose if you know about it. All right, so what I have is, I have a weather web part. This weather web part, what's the best practice for deploying web parts? The DLL can be in the global assembly cache or in the private bin folder. You administrators, you should force your developers to not deploy the DLLs in the GAC, because the GAC is the trusted place. If you decide that web part can go into the GAC, heaven for developers. They can do whatever they want. So you should force your developers to kind of ask for the permissions that they need for their web part during the deployment of the solution. And they know perfectly how this goes, so they shouldn't have any excuse for this. So they have kind of asked the permission, the code access permissions. So this web part talks to a web service, and by default, if let me just change this quickly to cap. You know, if you are responsible for a SharePoint environment, over here, you have the super important web.config. What is important for administrators here is this trust level. Okay? Trust level. So normally this is set to minimal. Okay? Minimal means web parts that are deployed in the private bin folder, they can only execute HTML pretty much. They cannot talk to SharePoint, they cannot do web services, they cannot do a lot of things. So this should be your configuration. Just refresh this already, because I've touched the web.config. Now, what do the developers have to do? Well, they have to give you a WSP with all of the DLLs, and then they have to, let me just extract this to the desktop just to show you one thing. So it's over here. This is this installation script. It's important for you administrators to know about this installation script, because if you don't know about this installation script, your developers can do whatever they want. If you just simply click add solution and you just go with the flow, this can have dramatic consequences within your server farm. Yeah. So over here, we actually tell SharePoint to deploy a feature, and then here are the kind of more sensitive things. So over here, in the manifest, you can specify whether the DLL is going to be in the GAC or in the private bin folder. Best practice, private bin folder. Okay, this here is just some code that will be executed while we are activating the feature. This is what we call an event handler. Unfortunately, yeah, pretty much every DLL that you use for SharePoint, yeah, is going to be deployed in the GAC. Yeah? So you don't have that much control. It's only with web parts that you decide, okay, where the DLL can go. But then we have code access security. So this is the specific permission that the web part is asking. Yeah, and this is what the developer can add to it. All right, so going here, let me show you the steps how you can deploy this. So you get this, okay, via email, for example. And what you're going to do is, you're going to go to that folder, and then use STS-ADM add solution. And then you give the file name of the weather webpart.wsp. Okay, so what happens here is the solution is not deployed, it's just added to that table in the configuration database. Okay, so that is already very nice. Now we can go to our SharePoint Central Administration. Because over here, as an administrator, you have the solution management page. And this displays all of the WSPs that are in that solution store. And from here, as you see, weather web part has not been deployed yet. So what we can do as an administrator, we can deploy the solution. All right, now, understand that you have some red text here, but as an administrator, okay, we have some red text, but what does it actually mean? Yeah? Okay, it's going to place an assembly in the global assembly cache. It's going to do some code access security. What kind of security is this web part asking? You don't know by simply looking at these pages. So you have to dive into the manifest of XML if you really want to know about this and look at what kind of permissions are being asked. Okay, and then we can deploy this. Okay, so I'll not do this just to gain some time. But then the web part can be activated and added to a page. Now let me show you another one. Okay, so one of the things that you administrators should be aware of is the global assembly cache is the holy place for developers. Yeah? If they can get their DLL in there, bravo. Yeah? They can do whatever they want. There's another trusted place, another nice place for the developers. And that's something that administrators don't know about. That's my experience. And that's this one here. Layouts. Who knows about layouts? Layouts is, if I look in companies, it's being used all the time to just drop custom ASPX pages. Yeah? Developers are creating something, an extension to SharePoint, they drop the ASPX page in that folder here. Okay, you as an administrator say, okay, no problem. But do know that this folder here is a trusted folder by SharePoint. Anything that drops in here, and your developer can do whatever he or she wants in the code. Okay, the code itself is executed with the account of the user, but they have techniques, you know how clever developers are, yeah, they have techniques of kind of impersonating another user and kind of impersonate the boss, and then go to the document library of the boss and copy all of the documents from the boss document library to their own personal document library. So let me show you this. It's also important for people to know that if they download things from the web, the SharePoint community is a very nice community. Yeah? I'm not going to tell here that there's a lot of malicious SharePoint code available, but let me just show you that if I STS-ADM add solution, file name, appealing, demo package .wsp. All right, so let's go and deploy that solution. So you download some, or your developer says, hey, this looks cool, can you install this within the server farm? So you do this. There's nothing really kind of warning you that this is not what it looks like. Okay, so it has been deployed. So, okay, so now deploying means it is available for the users. So you know how users are. Okay, I'm here in this team site, and I have to be an administrator of that team site to be able to activate this feature. But a lot of power users are administrators in the real world. So if I go to site settings, and if I go and activate this feature, okay, so it's an appealing site feature, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Okay, so I have a feature, and it allows people, hey, make your site more attractive. Okay, so let's do that. And let's just, okay, let's go for pink. Okay, they go for it, and then they press OK. Okay, nothing really happens. Well, first has to execute the code, but nothing really happens. They go back, and oops, yeah, everything is gone. Even if I don't have the permission, myself as a logged in user, I don't have the permission to create things or delete things, still that coder has deleted all of my stuff. Okay, why? Well, let me show you just, this is the catastrophic application page. Let's just show you what your developers can do in their code. They can execute this. SP security run with elevated privileges. If you see this in Coda, as an administrator, ding-a-ding-a-ding, the red flag has to be raised because this is dangerous. Yeah, because if they go and do that, anything that's in that small block, yeah, is done with the account of the SharePoint, the super SharePoint account. Yeah, and they can do that if they are deployed in the GAC or if they are deployed in the layouts folder. So be aware of this. Now I will get angry emails from the developers. Yeah. Okay. Good. Last thing is just a quick word about retracting and upgrading solutions. So you saw me deploying solutions. All right, this is good, but while your server farm is kind of growing and growing, and you have deployed list templates, web parts, and so on, very often you're going to have new versions of these list templates and so on. So you need to kind of upgrade your solutions. Do know that it is not the perfect story here in the world of SharePoint. Upgrading and maintaining solutions is very hard. You should plan this in front. Yeah. Let me just quickly show you a demo to illustrate, and that will be the last one. So what I have here, not here, go back here. I have the Belgian beers. Yeah. No demos without beers. Okay, so this is a list instance that has been created based on a template that I delivered as part of my solution. This comes. Okay, so let me just go here. Just recompiling. All right. So is it there? Okay, so let's create a new beer item. Any Belgians here? Probably. What's the best Belgian beer? All right. So I'll give it a ranking 5. All right, 5. Press OK. Okay, so people have created dozens of these instances. Okay, then there needs to be a change. So over here, you see that we have a rank 5. People are asking, hey, this should be good, bad, or ugly. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to do it very manual, but this is the new schema. I'll just show you one thing. And I'm going to drop this. Suppose that this is packaged in a solution. You do upgrade solution, and then it updates the feature. So you go to tag it. So this is basically the schema. I'm going to do this, and then show you if I do a recycle of my application pool. This will be the final demo. So let's refresh this. So I changed the template. SharePoint is very sensitive about templates. It's based on, so SharePoint works with templates. You create always something based on a template. And the instance that you have created is stored in the database, together with all of the changes you make in the browser. The template is always needed to deliver that core infrastructure. So if you change that template, you will risk of breaking all of the instances. That's why I'm going to already say this. The golden rule for versioning templates is never change the templates if there are already instances created based on it. What you do is you create a new feature with your new template. And your developers can create code that migrates the old instances to the new instances. And that's what they can do. That's kind of the best practice. I want to show you just one click if this one comes, and then we're finished. If SharePoint is waking up, and this is the whole problem with solutions. Actually, if you deploy a solution, you create timer jobs, and sometimes the timer service gets crazy. Go for it. There we go. So I've updated that schema, and at first instance, everything will look perfectly. Come on. Go for it. You can do it. And see who is really causing the CPU to go crazy. Nothing really. Just SharePoint. All right, there it is. I have 4 GB on this machine, so this is not a memory problem. All right, so at first sight, it looks all nice. I can go and view the item. All right, and okay, 5. Remember that I changed it into a choice field instead of a number field. If I edit the item, okay, so we have the choice. But look now, I'm going to go for average. Click OK, and bam, I get a catastrophic failure. Yeah? Sometimes you get an unexpected error. Yeah? So golden rule to finish this whole thing is never change things that templates for which instances have already been created. Go for the second version of the feature and deploy that one. So with that, I have flashing red lights. I need to stop. So I hope you learned something. I have white papers on MSDN discussing this for developers, so you can learn something from it probably too. And thank you very much for joining me. So fill in your eval and safe trip back home. Yeah. If there are any questions, I will be here for a couple of minutes. Thank you.